Fantastic, the day in the life. How is your typical day?
Okay.
I know everybody does have maybe the way they approach their days, but like from you, how is your typical day? How does it look like?
Okay. Typical day might start with a stand-up.
Okay.
Yeah. So working with dev, test, and the whole three amigos, just going through what's happening with our sprints, what's happening with the sprint, anybody that having any issues, just general, everybody just feeding back to see what they're working on and if there are any issues. So just that general stand-up meeting. And then it could follow, I could have a meeting with my head of product because that's where I get there on what feature I should be working on. So I'll work with the head of product. We'll go through what my next set of deliverables will be. Once I get that there, I might need to book in some meetings with some other parts of the business or other, if it's an area that I need more knowledge on, I could speak to other BAs as well. So it may be a bit of meetings across the day with either the team itself or the wider business. Sometimes I might speak to dev as well, just to understand some technical bits while I'm just doing some analysis. So for being a BA, you're going to be talking to a lot of people, trying to you can't assume. So there's a lot of questions, validation and the likes. And then sometimes you have the more BA and we need to resolve this. There's some other systems that I'm also looking after. That I was able to train myself on some admin tasks. So for instance, Dynamics. So, we need to know how to do this, or we need to set this Power Automate flow. So it's me going in to sort that out for the team. So the whole day is usually full of meetings and speaking to people. And then sometimes during the week, we now have the sprint review where we look at what we've achieved from that sprint and we demo that feature to the business, get feedback, go back and see what we're going to iterate upon. So it's just that constant back and forth to business. So basically what I'm trying to share here now is what I call a requirements catalog. So a requirements catalog is basically part of one of the steps in your whole requirements engineering process, which consists of requirements elicitation, analysis, documentation, modeling, and management. So this is just one bit of it. And you might wonder, okay, what is a requirement? So a requirement is a feature that has been requested by a stakeholder to form part of a solution. And a requirement, we have different types of requirements. We have the general and the solution requirements, which can be the business requirements, which can be general or technical, and we have the solution requirements, which can be functional and non-functional. And the business requirements can form part of the solution requirements, technical, the functional and non-functional requirements. Now, the idea of the reason why we need to document this requirement, so just imagine you've spoken to people and now you're trying to trace or understand where these requirements came from, and just to keep a history of your full requirements that you've captured. Now, for me, the different ways of working, if you're working waterfall or if you're working agile, so people might argue agile, just go into your backlog and create your user stories. But for me, I'd like to just keep everything in one place, and from here I can actually go into Jira, for instance, and create my user stories off the back of my catalog. But the catalog is just something that I can work on, that even if tomorrow you needed to hand over your repository to someone, they can just pick up your requirements and run it as well. So that's why we have this catalog. Now, if I move to the next page, what I've done. So this template, so I've gotten it from the BCS, and it was part of the knowledge Darlington shared on certifications that needed to be gained. And this is one of the ways to capture requirements in a catalog. It's quite extensive, and you may find that you may not really need to use everything here. And you may find some things might be repetitive, but at the end of the day, when you go through it and you've done it a number of times, you can say, okay, I don't need to do this or I don't need to do that. Or what we've done, if we look into the header here, which is the most important bit, so we have the requirement ID. which is the first thing. And what I've tried to do, where especially when we have different types of requirements, I use like the requirement type to build my identifier. The business might have different ways of creating identifiers, but I would just, if I'm just going by my own logic, I'll just say, okay, for functional requirements, I might just give it an F and then 001, give it, and then if it's still in draft, I'll give it V0-1. So that for me knows that I know that it's still in draft until it's validated. And then the requirements in this area, in this regard, primary name, user access. You give the description. The user should be enabled with the right permission so they can log. So they can log into the portal. You have the source, and this is who asks for that requirement. Then you have the owner. So most times, if you get a requirement from, so you have a sales team, for instance, and then you have one of the sales agents telling you this is what they want, this is what they want. You have an overall owner that would say, okay, yes, this requirement, we would like that, and we just actually sign that off. And then this is also myself, and this is also still stating, even though I have put the F at the beginning of the identifier to the functional requirement, I'll still list it here because, for instance, if you're handing this over to somebody and don't understand the logic behind your how you go about your IDs, so makes it clearer that this requirement is a functional requirement, and the functional requirement is what you want the system to do. So, for instance, you want the users to be able to log into the system, for instance. Non-functional requirements are things like performance requirements, security requirements, and all that. Now, when you are prioritizing your requirements in order of importance, there are different prioritization techniques. Some use the high, medium, low. Some use the must-go, which is the must-have, should have, and the like. So if you feel that this is a top priority, we use the must-go prioritization. The business area as well, you've put that down. The stakeholders, you've put that down. Now, associated non-functional requirements, if you have a list, if you have a URL to other documents, that can be related to that requirement, you put that in there. And then the acceptance criteria. So this is just you saying that, okay, this is what should happen. The user should be sent a portal setup link. They will enter an email and password, and guidance will be shown to the user, consisting of characters and all that. So you've put that there. But even if, for instance, you are working agile and you are going to use the whole behavioral, the Gherkin syntax that says giving a user is this, you can also translate this kind of activity criteria into that syntax. So you can work either way with it. And then there's some bits I've left empty just to show you how far your requirements catalog can go. Related requirements. So for instance, now where you have user access and login, they're related. So before a user can log into the past portal, which is like a second requirement, they should have been sent or set up somehow, or sent a link to set a password. So if you put in, for instance, now I've put in my related requirement, I've put the ID here. If, for instance, I was to go into Jira now and create this ticket in Jira, I already know that I can relate to these requirements already. So this is already giving me that structure before I go into building my backlog in Jira, for instance. We have comments, we have the rationale. Okay, why are we using this requirement? The resolution, if it's agreed that we should proceed with this requirement or not. So it's more like everything you are hearing, you're putting it down. You're taking every requirement down. You're understanding where it's coming from, why they need that requirement, and then you still go back to the business. Okay, let's say you finish talking to the sales team, you've gathered all the requirements. You now go back to whoever is going to is responsible for that. So okay, this is all I've gathered in this area. Then they can validate this requirement, and then you now say, okay, fine. Then that's where versioning comes in, because now they've agreed that this is the requirement you want. It's no more your draft, it's now your version. So for every change that goes in, versioning will come in, and then you go through change management process but at least you have that history that this is where everything you'll be speaking to users about, you'll be keeping that there. So tomorrow, if I was to leave the business and somebody was to pick it up, instead of them saying they're going to Jira or to find all my tickets and everything, you can just find everything in one place and basically carry on from there. So it's just, there's so many aspects of this, but this is just one bit of what I'll do on a typical day in creating requirements and just documenting documenting my requirements, not creating my requirements, documenting my requirements. So yeah, listen, I'll pass over to you now. If you have any questions, any questions before I pass over to Darlington?
Yeah, so do we have any from anyone? I think this is a traceability metrics is simply we have a requirement. We want to know where did it come from, who approved the requirement, where is the requirement going to, is there any supporting documents of that requirement? So mapping or tracing all requirements in a particular place. Yeah, so additional, please go ahead with your. So additional, we'll go with you first, then I would answer. I think Ifeanyi and then Donna has questions we would answer. So additional, can you unmute and ask?
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I really appreciate this. Please, the question is, who initiates this project? I want to know, is it they call them product owner, or who initiated before you started gathering these requirements? At least the request should come from somewhere. So I want to know how the process looked like. Who initiated this before you start gathering the requirement? Thank you.
Okay, so now for me, so when you say who requested this, now when a project is has been signed off, we always have a scope that we work with, which is signed off by, so that the project manager is involved, the business is involved, and that's the business case that is signed off. Now, for me, I work with the product owner, even though I'm still a business analyst. So I work with the product owner, and I work with two product owners basically, and they give guidance on the general, or the general direction of the project should take. So I get my requirements on one hand from them as well, and then I also get some other bits I have to go to other parts of the team. But I work with the product owner to get the requirements from him or other parts of the business, and it can also be external stakeholders as well. Sometimes the product owner speaks to external stakeholders to confirm some things. I might be on those meetings or not, but I would still get requirements. That's how I work, though, I get requirements as well from the product owner as well.
Okay, so Angela, let me help answer that. So if you stop sharing, I will just share my screen and then answer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where's my mouse now? I'm going to look at my mouse. Yeah.
Okay, so please, everyone, just let me know if you see my screen is only small, so I try to make it big. So this is how Angela works in her organization at the moment. So Angela works with a product owner. This product owner is more like kind of so if you work within a team where you're going to be improving a particular product. So there's going to be somebody who owns that particular product within the organization. So the person collects the requirements on behalf of the product owner from the business, and then works with the engineering team who is going to develop or deliver that stuff. Now, this is how a BA works typically. So if everybody see my screen here, so we have a customer team. Customer teams are the people who are in the business. It could be from sales, it could be from marketing, it could be from finance, it could be from anywhere. It could even be from the product owner or the vice president of product himself. But there's always a business need. There's always something that they want to improve on their particular product, or there's a new feature that they want or anything. So this BA would identify that business need. capture it, and then detail it into a requirement document. So this requirement document now is for the technology team or the delivery team to work on that and then translate it into a solution. And then the BA will validate that solution and take it back to the business. So the business here, like I said, is the the sales, the marketing, the finance. It could even be an external client. The key thing here is whosoever is requesting for something, whosoever is submitting a requirement, that requirement to be approved by that person's boss, and that requirement to be written down, the requirement to be fleshed, user stories will be derived from that requirement so that the technology team will pick it up, develop and test it, and then through the business analyst, it will be validated. So when you ask that question, where does it come from? It comes from, if you work for Facebook now, and Facebook want to improve their video features. So there will be a product manager, or there'll be somebody who looks at that particular aspect of the product. Customers will have submitted their concerns. That product manager collects it and calls the business analyst and say, these are the things. Let's collect this requirement so that we could prepare them um, for development. You could then be a business analyst that works directly with the business team, not with a product owner now, but you're working directly with the business where you're trying to understand processes, and there you are not with a product owner, you're working directly with different business units. But if you're working to improve a particular software or product in an organization, you're definitely going to work in this setting. But if not, you'll be working directly with people in the different departments. I don't know if that answers that. I think somebody asked, can you
Yeah.
give an example of how you post task on Jira? I think Jira would be another session. We can't really do everything here, but
So, sorry, sir, before you go, sorry to cut you short.
sure.
I don't want, okay, sorry. Yeah, you've talked about the customer's team. Does it mean that BA cannot identify a need in the process of the organization? That is the business need comes from the BA itself, other than the customer's team.
Okay, so
Can the BA identify a need within the
yeah, so
business operation?
correct. So the BA can identify a need, but the BA cannot identify a need by herself and do it. So if I'm a BA, I'm working in First Bank, right? And I've been looking at how people are clogging the what's it called, the banking hall. I see how people are queuing. I see how I go to my manager or I go to the head of customer experience and say, see, I have identified something. It's a pain point. I see how people are queuing, sweating in the sun, even in our ATM. Why don't we improve this cash transfer process? And the manager will say, okay, do you have anything in mind? You say, okay, please give me 1 or 2 days. Let me put down my thoughts. So the BA is identifying a need, but that need has to be approved, and then the need has to be thought of. It's not the BA that would do the BA is part of the business, can identify, but also the main work of the identification comes from who. So a BA can suggest, and the manager will say, sorry, let's forget about it. But the manager cannot suggest, and the BA will say, let's forget about it, because the BA is working for the business. I don't know if you understand.
Perfectly. Thank you.
Okay. So how do you post task on Jira? So you need to set up things on Jira, you need to write out the user stories, and then you need to go to Jira and then create it as a work item, or you could create it as a task. I think Jira will be a very different set. We'll try to hold in one of the business analysts in one of our next hands-on. Maybe somebody will look at how to do that on Jira. Donna is asking, does the BA meet to stakeholders or just the head of company, or are they the same people? The BA, so let me see. If you just go I think I used to have one, oh Lord, I used to have something, Holy Spirit, help me. Yes, so this is what I was looking for. So Lola, can you see my screen? So this is a business
Yeah, I
analyst.
can see it.
So the business analyst is interacting with the project manager. Remember in our slide, we did mention who do they work with, right? So they interact with the project manager. The project manager is only concerned about the scope. What is the scope and what's the status? Like, because he's taking delivery. Now, the BA is interacting with the business users, which are like head of department from different units who are working in the business, sales, finance, marketing, HR, because they are the ones submitting the user requirements. Now, the BA is, working with other stakeholders. These are consultants. These are people who just want, or this could be even the government, right? Maybe there are some government regulations that we need to collect requirements from. The BA is working with a QA who is, once the developer has developed something, the QA has to kind of test it. The development team develops, and then the sponsor, it's either the head of that department where the requirement is coming from, or the CEO of that organization, but the person who brings in the money, because this person talks about how it impacts the business, why the users talks about what concerns them, what they would like to use the solution to do. So does this give you a kind of interaction to see how important a BA brings all of these people together?
Yes.
Perfect. All
Yes,
right.
yes, yes.
I have kept my other darlings hanging, so we would have to go. So Vicky, do you want to tell us now? I know if Angela has collected those requirements in her, and traced it in her traceability sheet. Now it would be great to see how do we put these requirements in a requirement document. So would you love to take us through, maybe show us one requirement document that has been created?
Okay, so after we've gathered like all our requirements from different parts of the business, we actually have to put it in a Word document. So it's called a functional specification document, but it can be called different things as well, depending on what organization you're working for. So at the top of the document, you have document control. So it means you write down the date of whatever change you've made in that document. So like first draft, and after the first draft, maybe your project manager goes through it or you go through it together. So that is a walkthrough. And maybe the requirement goes into review stage. So you just make sure that you date all of this. It just makes it a bit more organized, and as well, if anybody picks up the document at any stage, they would know what stage the document is at. So for privacy reasons, I've removed names of other people involved in this project, and I've just left only my name. So with this project, I worked with like the project manager, client, and different other people as well, including the IT team as well. So the development team. So you have to, for a functional spec, you have to list all the stakeholders that have provided requirements or that has contributed to the project in one way or the other. So you have to list them here, and you have to actually note down what their responsibility towards this document is. And in some documents you might have maybe like process maps, or you might have other supporting documents, and at this space you actually put them here so that when anyone in the business is going through the document and then another document is linked, they can easily go through that as well to be able to understand the project as a whole. Regular table of contents. So with this functional spec, the aim is to write and note down everything in the project. So for example, if you give this functional spec to someone that is not at all in any way related to the project, they should be able to read the document and 100% understand what the project is about. So you need a bit of introduction of the project, the background of the project, and also the current process. So let's say the project is about process re-engineering or cloud optimization, for example. You'd be able to like speak on the current state of the business. So give every detail, like as much detail as you can. Nothing is too small, nothing is stupid. So that's what you give here. And also, you also have to note down the scope and objectives of the project, because sometimes some projects can go too big and you find yourself begin to go out of scope. So that is not good. And you have to note down the scope here to be able to remind yourself and anyone reading this document that this is what's in scope and this is what is out of scope. Because sometimes working in a real organization, and for example, you go to someone in sales to get a few requirements and they say, oh, we really need that functionality, but then it's not in the scope. Some people, they think they are smart. They want to pressure the business analyst into including that as part of the development. You know how it is. And you just have to remind the team and remind whoever it is that it's not in scope and this is what you've been given. And also, if they get to read the document on their own, they can also see that it's not in scope. So this is really, really important as part of this document. And so is the out of scope as well. For some projects, it might not really be able to list out list of functionalities that are out of scope, but having a list of functionalities in scope is very important. And then for here, sometimes you can just say anything that is not in scope is out of scope. So you just know that you don't need to list anything else. Like I've said here, this one. And most projects involves like development, sorry. So like developing a new software or optimizing a current software they already have. So in this bit here, you would actually list everything that will be developed in this as part of this project. So it could be process re-engineering, or it could be a cloud solution deployment, or so it could be anything. So every project is always different. So you just need to make sure that you include that here, including the kind of documentations that will be provided. So the next bit, so after you've documented the current state of the business or the current process, you also need to document what the future will look like after you've delivered everything promised here in the deliverables. So you need to give every detail as possible. Sorry, I've removed all of these for privacy reasons. So these are names of the actual companies. So you actually need to document. You need to like tell the reader or whoever it is that, okay, this is what this is what your process will look like after we've delivered this, or this is what your business would look like after we've delivered this. And then this bit is just different areas of the development, just in more detail. And just in more detail. And then we come to the user stories. So the user stories is every development that needs to happen. So every requirement that you've collected, it needs to appear in the user stories, because these user stories will be put into Jira for the developers. Sometimes as a business analyst, you do this part yourself, but some companies, you just put it down in a document like this, and the developers do it themselves and optimize, and then you just follow through your daily stand-up and regular team meetings. So for user stories, we have the user of that requirement. We have what the user wants to achieve, and what will happen after the user does something. And then we also have acceptance criteria. This just means that if this user story is developed, it needs to have all of this before the client can accept it, that it's been developed to the full extent. So some user stories have one acceptance criteria. It doesn't really matter, but everything that needs to be working before that functionality is ticked off needs to be put here. And you need to be really careful with that, and also put every detail, like whatever detail, nothing is stupid at all, because when it comes to signing off, this is one of the documents that you'd use and be like, okay, we've delivered this now, this is what you signed off on. So nothing is stupid, put everything. And then we have the priority as well. So this just means M just means this is what this functionality needs to be developed before we can say the project is complete. So it's important to let's say it's important to what should I say? So for example, you're developing a software, M means it's important for that software to be fully functioning. And most of the time we have M, we have C. C just basically means, just leave me alone. Sorry guys. C basically means you can have it, but the success of the project is not dependent on it. And no, sorry, S, sorry. And then C, can you just, so could have means you could have it if the budget permits, or if there is no other restrictions, or just if it doesn't like put a strain on the budget or the developers, it would be nice to have. That's what it basically means. And will not have, most of the time when I have a requirement that is this, I just don't put it, or I put it and then cross it out. That's what I usually do. So I think for a functional specification document, the user stories part is the end of it. And then for sometimes you can also add what's it called? You can also add another table that kind of summarizes all of these user stories into single requirements. So into single requirements so that the developers can just kind of go through it and be like, okay, tick, we've done this, we've done that, instead of them reading through the user story, because most of them don't really like to read through anything.
Yeah.
And user stories is quite a lot sometimes. This one is quite small because this project wasn't really a big one. But if you see some user stories, you'll be discouraged to read through it, and developers just want to, tick up. And you as well as a business analyst, you want to make sure that they've got everything in check and they've developed everything as promised. So it would be nice to have a table that lists down all of the requirements, and then you can just tick it off as they deliver. So yeah, sorry guys for the noise and distraction, but yeah, that is the end of a functional specification document. And once this is done, then it will be sent to like the project manager or like the project sponsor to like go through it. You have a walkthrough, review, and then send off to the client to like sign it off and stuff like that before development starts. So
Okay.
yeah, sorry guys for the noise.
No, it's fine. You've even tried. I don't know if I would have been able to successfully do this having those soldiers around. So, thanks. Do we have any question around yeah, additional, please go on.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, Madam Vicky. It's been wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, my question is this. In stakeholder mapping, the example you give now, all the development team that you have assembled in the stakeholder mapping, is it the function of the BA to actually do the stakeholder mapping for the project? Were you responsible to look for the development team that you need for that project? Is it your function to assemble them and map them?
No, not really, because sometimes when you're working in a company, you already have the IT team, so the developers. Some companies have in-house developers, some have outsourced developers, so they are already on there. And if anything, if maybe you get introduced to like a new project by your project manager, he will be the one to tell you, okay, these are the stakeholders involved. When you're speaking through with the stakeholders, you can still identify new stakeholders that you might need to speak with. So as a BA, you can still identify stakeholders, but primarily is the project manager's job or project sponsor to be to brief you on the project and tell you who you need to speak with to get started.
Yeah, just to add more to that. So as long as it is a project, the project manager is responsible for identifying the resources that would work to realize that project. Now, a business analyst thinks of stakeholders from a business point of view, people he or she needs to collect requirements from, right? So the business analyst would identify, working with the business owners to identify the stakeholders from the business side that she needs to speak to collect the requirements. Now, once she has collected, like we would use the traceability document that Angela showed to collect those requirements, then we would use this functional specification to document the requirements. So once it is documented, we hand it over to the project manager. That is after it. So the project manager would work and ensure that that document is approved by the stakeholders. Then the project managers would identify the people who would do the work. We need a developer, 3 developers, we need a tester, we need a bricklayer, we need 2 carpenters. Is the project manager to identify the stakeholders that will do the work, that would achieve or that will build the solution for that particular requirement. When the business analyst identify the stakeholders he or she needs to collect the requirement from, project manager identify the stakeholders that will do the work to actually realize that requirement. I
Very
don't know
clear.
if you
Very,
all right.
very, very clear. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So we actually fast spent, and I would try to close in 5 minutes or less. So for those who would say, okay, you have mentioned about this, how do we start? Um, we cannot get everything in one webinar. So the webinars we're trying to do is not just do a tell us, tell us, tell us. It's call people who are already working to show us what they're using to work and how they go about their work. But I think to take this a further stage, it would be great for us to, for anyone who is interested to say, I think I would like to be a business analyst. I would like to take this further. So it would be great to give us a call or to actually book a call. Then we would go through that first of all, understanding your gap, and then mapping out the roadmap for a 2 to 3 years roadmap. Then you can start the training and then the mentorship. So for example, if you additional signs up and we do that roadmap, so you'll be trained for like 4 or 5 weeks, and then maybe you'll be attached to Vicky, or you could be attached to Angela, or you could be attached to any already um, aligned senior business analyst who is working, so that you would work alongside the person for that given duration of maybe 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, depending on the length of the work that they are doing, so that you would get firsthand how this thing really work in a real life environment, not just giving you a demo, I mean, a dummy project that doesn't have a customer. So there you're kind of more involved. You're seeing it, you're seeing how he or she is going about their work. So that would help us achieve the fourth milestone, which is to build capacity. Now, been after you have built that capacity, now you need to solve a problem. So we have a list of problems, BA case studies, PM case studies, data analysis case studies that will subject our students to and let them solve it. If they solve it, that's only when we can move them to number 6. But if they can't solve it, we take them back to number 4. But very little is the case that they would really be able to solve it. So number 6 just prepares you for the job market, and the mentor that you have worked with will actually provide you the reference, because he or she was part of your own learning journey. So once you have been prepared for interview, and you got your CV, you can start applying. And then during your application process, definitely we support you with those job application support. And the aim is to see you move from start to a congratulations. So for those who wish to take this further, like we did mention as well yesterday, so there's also a 35% price cut for those who attended this webinar. And it's going to see, God is my witness. The 2 ladies you see here, they went through this program, and they actually paid more than whatever it is that I know. It's like they are going to say, Darrington, why are you coming so down? Like, but and this was Angela, Vicky, this was like 4 years ago or something like that, right?
Yeah, 2021.
Exactly. So compared to the market value of whatever it is now, but it's the aim is just to see how for those who would actually capitalize on this. So we have until now to like sixth is more like 5, 6, 7 days from today to say yes, I am willing to proceed. And just for attending this webinar, we would provide a free CV review. I don't even know how I'll get the time to do it, but definitely it's something that I would love to do for those who just for saying thank you for attending the webinar, and also kind of guiding you on interview, or if you're like kind of blocked in your career and you really don't know what to do or how to go about it, we are happy to give that advice. Now, for those who wish to proceed, I think you could just scan